Hello everybody. What we have here is a good old Craftsman push mower, not self-propelled. It's got a Briggs & Stratton on it. It's a curb find, and I was able to talk to the people that were giving it away. They said sometimes it was hard to start, other times it would start fine and they'd be mowing and it would die on them. Normally that points to, your ignition system, your coil, your spark plug, or something along those lines. So today I'm going to dig into it and see what I can figure out on it. Whenever I go to work on something and tinker with it, I always check the oil first. This one has enough oil on the dipstick, at least to try and get it to start. I can tell the air filter looks kind of new, and the spark plug too, but they didn't say whether or not they put a new one on it. So I'm going to try to start it and see what happens. I'm going to try to start it and see what it does. I'll pull the rope about 5 times. Alright, I guess something's wrong with the pull rope. Well, none of that worked. So I guess what I'm going to try to do is I'll spray some stuff in the carburetor area and see if maybe that'll get it to fire off. Maybe it has carburetor issues. So a word of caution, carburetor and air cleaner and all that, it is very flammable. So it is dangerous to do what I'm doing. So be careful when you're doing things like this. I'm going to go ahead and put a few shots of carburetor cleaner in there. That ought to do it, and I'll see what happens next. Put this back in there. This is the first time I've took the air filter off, and it looked practically brand new, so maybe they messed with this a little bit, I don't know. But let's see what happens now with the carb cleaner in there. Dang pull rope. Still not starting, and the pull rope's messing up again. So obviously there's spark issues, because even with carburetor cleaner it's not firing off. So something must be keeping it from sparking. So even with all that pulling, still wasn't starting. I just took out the spark plug and I sprayed some carburetor cleaner in there, and I'm going to see if it starts with it in there. It should, because if it's sparking and it starts with that, then that means that something in the ignition is to blame. Alright, there was 5 more pulls after adding the carburetor cleaner in there. Still ain't sparking and starting, so something is amiss here. I just went and got my spark plug tester, ignition tester. So we're going to see what happens whenever I pull the pull rope. There's another 5 pulls on the pull rope. Hopefully the flash or lack thereof showed up on the screen. Alright, so in my last video, have the spark plug tester in there. I didn't see no flashes when I played the video back. So I look on the instructions for the spark plug checker, or spark check. On number 2 for testing, it says engine does not start, bulb of inline spark checker does not flash. Ignition system components faulty. So what that means is it could be my spark plug It could be the coil itself. There's the ground wire on there, which is a kill wire. And if that's grounding out, it can cause issues also. So what I'm about to do is, I'm about to pull it off of there and see if the lawnmower starts or not. On my next video, I'm going to tear into it and I'm going to remove that kill wire. I just already took the spark plug checker off of there. But I have to remove that kill wire and then make another video and see, like, maybe I'll find something on the kill wire wrong for whatever reason. Then if it doesn't start with the kill wire removed, then that's pointing to the ignition coil itself. I can ohm it out tomorrow with a multimeter tester, or for the next video, rather I should say. But these lawnmowers, I mean, even if you have carburetor issues and you spray carburetor cleaner on the air filter and douse the air filter, you spray it inside the carburetor, or you take out the spark plug and put it in the hole and it still don't fire, then you have a lack of spark somewhere. So that's where I'm at this point in time, and I'll take my next step in the next video. Okay, so I took 2 Phillips screws out of the top of the engine cover, and then I took off this screw here, which is a 3/8, and this one is also a 3/8. I pried this cover up and I pried the wire loose. So what I'm going to do is put these bolts back in here. Just for grins, I took off the air filter and I sprayed it with carburetor cleaner, and I do have that kill wire disconnected. So at this point in time, if there's no fuel issues, it should fire, and even with the carburetor cleaner on the air filter, it should fire off if the coil itself isn't dead. Alright, that was 8 pulls, and as you saw, it did not start. So at this point, I'm really thinking it's an ignition coil problem, or for some reason maybe it has low compression. Would be the only 2 things left that I can think of that would cause it not to start. So I will test out the coil tomorrow and check the compression, possibly tomorrow or in another video, and I'll just have to go from there. I've decided I'm going to go ahead and replace the coil while I'm in there anyways. So to take this apart and get to the coil, there's a Phillips screw here, a Phillips screw there. I've already removed them. There's 3 8mm bolts in this surround around the flywheel. There's an 8mm bolt here, one here, and one here. I've also already removed those. You can tilt this back, but don't do it too hard because it's mounted at the bottom to the fuel tank. There's an 8mm bolt for the oil dipstick tube. I've already removed that. Then I'm going to set that off to the side here to keep it out of the way. There's 4 3/8 bolts on this metal cover here. There's one here, one here, one down here right there, and then one that's kind of hard to see, but it's down in here. So that's all the bolts to get to the ignition coil after I get all these covers removed. To get the ignition coil off, I'm just gonna fold this back, and there's 2 1/4-inch bolts here. Well, 1 1/4-inch bolt here, another one there. Then I don't know if y'all remember in the other video, I took this kill wire off to just see if I could get spark or not, and it didn't spark. But something I discovered while messing with it is that in this wire there's a spot burnt through, so I guess it was grounding out all the time. I know you can't really see it, but it's just burnt through and everything. And luckily, for some reason or another, I had one of these wires, and some of my parts are on a parts mower or whatever, but I got one, and I made my own custom end on it. Like, I had to crimp a new one on, and I have it already assembled on this coil. and ready to go for whenever I take that coil off, and I'll put this on there. And I'm gonna put the gap at about 12 thousandths on it, and we'll go from there. Since I'm already in here messing with the coil, and these two screw holes is where each screw goes to mount the coil, go ahead and scuff these off to clean them up a little bit. And I'm also going to scuff up on this set of magnets and this one on the other side to get them clean and hopefully establish a good ground into this system. And then after I mount it on there, I can make a video to show you how to gap it properly for anybody that's wondering about it. I will say, whenever going to install a coil, like on this one, it says this side out. I don't know what happens when you put them in upside down inside of it, but something that makes it not work properly when you do that. So I'm gonna put this coil on there and get the bolts in there loose so I can get the gap set and everything, and I'll run the plug wire down to my plug and then run the kill wire to this bracket over here and get it in there, and then I'll gap the ignition coil after that. So to gap a ignition coil, I have this feeler gauge here, and it's at 12 thousandths. So what you want to do is slip it in here, and I'll have to put this up against it, and you want it where you feel a little bit of tension on it, but you can still slide it in and out. You don't want it too tight where you can't move your feeler gauge. This is pretty hard to do one-handed, so I'm going to have to do one side and then do the other side real quick, and then I'll bring the video back. Alright, so I got that coil mounted, and then I can get my gauge in there and I can slide it up and down, and I feel a little bit of a drag, but it's not horrible. And then you want that on both sides to the best of your abilities. These two mounting bolts, you don't have to like tighten them with an an insane amount of torque, so just snug them down by hand. And I still got to put this kill wire in this bracket over here, and I will do that and then be right back. So now I have the ignition kill wire mounted. It's something I discovered messing around with this mower as much as I have been lately, is that the recoil starter, one of the paws on the back side came out. So you see there's that plastic piece there, and on this side it's not in there no more. So what I'm going to have to do is, in a separate video, is I'm going to drill out these 4 rivets on the top. And I already also coincidentally have another recoil starter for another Briggs & Stratton, so I'm just going to use it. And I'll drill those rivets out, and I have a rivet gun or whatever, and I'll pop them out and put new ones in another video. Alright, so to drill out the 4 rivets around the recoil starter, I took my electric drill with the 3/16 drill bit. I also removed the cover, but you just sit here and you drill it. This is going to be kind of hard to do one-handed. Let me drill this one out and then I'll pick it back up. So I just drilled that rivet out. I got 2 more to do. So like I said, just take a drill, 3/16 drill bit, alright, that one's out, and then I'll do the same to this one. Then I'll go get the new recoil starter. Alright, so here's the new recoil starter. Then it'd be like this on the mower. This cover would. And this would go like this. And all the fastening holes line up. So what you do is get you a rivet gun. And this already has the right size head in it for these rivets. Then you grab 4 of these. And these are all the same diameter, they're just different. This part of it here is different lengths. Now I'm going to grab the shortest ones that I have in here, just to make sure that these don't hit the flywheel or none of that stuff. So take that. Then I gotta undo this to open up the gun. So that's that. Then you put one of these in here in one of these holes, somewhat get it centered up. Put the gun over this part of it, and get it in there like so. Then you squeeze this, and it should eventually pop the top of the rivet off like so. Then I gotta do that process 3 more times. Alright, so I got my new rivets in, and I actually had to drill 4 new holes with the 9/64 drill bit to get these rivets in because they're falling out of the other holes. It'll be alright. It shouldn't come out no more, and it'll keep the recoil starter on there. So that's how you replace this recoil starter. Alright, so long story short, on this mower, I found out it has low compression. I've already took out the 8 head bolts, took off all the screws and stuff to get the covers off the top and the 8 bolts out of the cylinder head, and I have the cylinder head off. There's obviously a lot of carbon. I have it soaking to get some of it off. I'm gonna have to scrape it off and all that. So then you come over here, and there's all this carbon. I haven't really got to like mess with the valves and see what the clearances and stuff are on the inside. And since this is a flathead engine, this muffler comes off. And there's some keeper tabs here. I'm gonna have to like get those out of the way and then get the bolts out and measure the valve clearance eventually. And look at inside the valves and make sure the clearance is good, and then make sure these valves aren't stuck as well, and like the seat might be coming out or something like that. And all this carbon definitely does not help this.